have to ask, you began as an interpreter, and now you're an executive with Veuve Clicquot. What was your journey?
That's an interesting question because, my mother didn't like it so well. After my master, I worked as an interpreter. Came to New York because I'd met my husband, and he was living in New York, and worked at the UN, and realized that it was pretty boring. It was very technical, and after a year, I thought, well, And I got into an American firm, an ad agency, PR firm, which was handling the Champagne bureau at the time, and representing all the brands. And one day, Veuve Clicquot came and said they wanted to open a subsidiary in the US, and would I join? So that was easy. And I must say that it was a career switch. In those days, it was not that common that you would go, from being an interpreter. Or if I had stayed in France, I could only have done that or be a professor. And here in America, the doors were open, and then I got into the wine business, and I must say that it was a wonderful lifestyle. It was something I'm really passionate about. It has a lot to do with my childhood, Mm-hmm. But my mother was a little bit upset at the beginning because she said, all these studies and you're in the wine business? And then, when she saw me coming after a few visits, and I was, doing budgets, and she said, I guess the master helped. And I said, yes. And then she started seeing me in magazine as any mother. She would brag and be very proud. So that settled that. But interestingly enough, the words were always my big love, and I like the idea of, sort of closing the loop on my life and going back to the words. That's why the writing has now become so important, because it gives you something that the business world doesn't give you. So it's even hard for me to describe it, but because I've had such a wonderful business life. But the writing and the being in touch with all of you, the feedback, the type of events, the lectures and all that is very rewarding. So,
but it sounds like you're speaking about being passionate about something and just following that passion, and the rest.
Yes.
I think, especially if you're a mother, and you'll experience it, just that. All those choices, and when you said you could go to France and be a professor, my training, I'm trained to be a university professor, but I have my children, and there's so many other things I love to do, and I think I like hearing you describe that. There's a planned aspect to it, but not so specific. It's just that you were passionate and you followed that. And you're doing all these wonderful
it comes,
things.
There are a lot of things that you don't control and that come when you don't expect them. And I think, a lot of women shouldn't be afraid to stop working to take care of the children, because that's very important. And, and then don't worry about after, because something will work out. My yoga teacher used to say that. It always works out in the end. And I really believe that.
My mother says our lives are lived in chapters.
Yeah.
And that I have to keep remembering that.
Yeah. You just have to, remember that balance. So you have to fine tune. At the end of the first book, I have all these periods in our life. And, you never have 100% happiness or equilibrium, but you want to be, there, not there, or not there, because, then it's not equilibrium anymore. And then you fine-tune as things,
That idea of mentorship, it's what comes across in your books is that you received a lot of it, and you've turned around and done that for others, that you've mentored others. And that's, I think, an important thing for us as women, to remember that the importance of being mentored, but then turning around to mentor others.
Yeah. It's very important. Everybody has to do it. That's the only way.
But did you consciously set out to do it?
I don't think you do you do and you don't. You learn through business, for example. You're being asked to mentor other young women, or young women write to me and want to meet with me, and and you do what you can. But I think every human being can be a mentor. Whether you teach a craft to someone, or whether you teach good manners to your children, or whether you with your relationship with your spouse. I mean, it doesn't have to be done in an aggressive way. It can be very, diplomatic and sort of low key. But it's very important to do it. And for me, toward the end of a life, it's giving back. That's the most important.